Welcome, friends, to episode 241 of Color of Magic, your Magic Gaming podcast, where we talk about all types of issues that affect gamers at and away from their gaming tables and computers. I'm your host, Power Dragon, and for 241 episodes of crazy discussions, still have my main man, Brian Sonic. How's it going, dude?
Still here. Have not have not jumped overboard yet.
Shoot, some days it's easier than others, I'll tell you that. But yeah, man, this was a weird week. This is a week where, we've got GameStop in the news. We've got some cool baseball stuff in the news, some crazy Magic celebrity stories. I mean, like, we're kind of all over the place in this one. Like, for a week where not much happened, the things that happened were at least significant enough to talk about. So we have that going for us. And as always, before we hop into it, be sure to check out patreon.com/color of magic and throw your boys a bone just a little bit. Help us out. Helps keep the lights on. But okay, let's roll into this lead story here, man, because this is one it's both a little bit like one I'll say is a little bit surprising, but mostly because of the timing more than anything else. But what we're talking about is GameStop is going to start buying collectible trading cards, which on its face seems a little bit weird, but there are some parameters to this. Now, the first thing is they're only going to buy graded cards, which I think that alone needs to be talked about because I think to give credit to GameStop, that's probably the right move,
Yeah.
right? You got to have less expertise to just look at a card or look online, see what a graded whatever is worth, and just be done with it, right? It's not, I got to check condition, I got to know what the hot card is or what set's coming out. You can just plug and play an employee and tell them how to look a thing up and how to hand money, right? Like
Right.
that's the goal. Now, even with that, they said there is a cap because my first thought was like, is GameStop just going to have like $10,000 cards laying around now? Like, what is this?
Right.
Right? Because that sounds crazy to me. But there's a reason it sounds crazy because even they said no, the max they're going to buy is $500.
It's about the price of a video game console, so their security risk doesn't really increase that much.
Yeah, actually, that's a good point because that is about $500 to $600 is kind of a high end gaming system. So if they're okay with that being in there, they're probably okay with some $500 cards. And a lot of their cards obviously won't be. Some will be 100, some will be 200, so they won't even all be the top end. So that's actually pretty cool. And they're only going to take cards from one grading service, and that's PSA. Now, PSA is one of the bigger known ones, so it's not even a problem that they're working with them. And they didn't give details, but I would imagine this is probably also so it's easy for them to have one grading house that they work with, right? They can learn what the markings look like, they can learn what the grades mean. If they have a question, I'm sure they've probably talked to them and probably get some type of expedited QA work or something, So overall, it sounds like they at least took the right steps to implement this.
I feel like it's the right steps for, I guess, for their employees, because like you said, it's not going to require the employees to learn much more. But overall, I just don't see this working because, again, if you're going to get into the cart, this is like, the toes in the water, but just the toe. Part of buying cards is having to haggle with people, is having to hire employees that know what things are worth, and they don't seem to be willing to do any of that stuff.
Yeah, for me, it's a timing thing, right? Because we've talked for years about how games are going more and more digital and, it's harder to get used copies of stuff on your shelves and whatever. And they dabbled in other things. I've heard of different GameStops trying everything from like board games, other random collectibles, whatever, but they never really did card game stuff for like they sold some booster packs for a minute. And there's still some you can get some product, but they've never really dealt in singles. And I always thought, well, that's a market if you want something that's always going to be around, but they've never tried. And sports
I mean,
cards or
I
whatever.
feel like on the right track, but just, I mean, if you, can you imagine if you still had your game store and these are the rules you instituted? How many cards did anybody bring you?
Oh, definitely not. But that's also the type of business I am. There's still, at least for now, I don't know how much longer as video games go more digital, still a video game first company, or at least among gamers still mentally associated with video games.
Yeah. And
So I
again,
think
like I
it's
said, they know. Like, look at everybody having a Game Pass. Well, even Nintendo kind of sort of has a Game Pass. It's just all games pretty much. It's pretty much old school Nintendo games. They don't have anything where you can buy like 40 or 50 new games because I guess Nintendo says, "Hey, we're making a lot of money. We ain't got to do that right now." But it's just
even more interesting now that I'm thinking about it is they still haven't really gone full-fledged into just retro video games, right? Like, that would still be a market, but
I remember. I think they dabbled in it, and same thing. It's just kind of like they never really went full. I guess maybe it didn't turn much of a profit for them. I don't know.
well, when somebody wants to bring you an original sealed copy of a Nintendo game and you wanna give them Tree Fitty, it probably doesn't sit
Also,
well.
yeah, because there've already been some videos on this where I guess depending on which GameStop, because I think right now it's still kind of a test program. So depending on which GameStop you go to, you may. I've seen some videos where people felt like they got almost fair value, and some where people felt like they were getting ripped off. And then even one of the employees said, "Look, I don't. We just started this. Like, I don't know what most of this stuff is. I haven't yet had time to learn what any of this stuff is." And again, because GameStop's turnover is ridiculous, a lot of their employees aren't going to be there long enough to learn any of this stuff because, as has been mentioned ad infinitum, it's just not a very fun company to work for. So,
Valid points. I guess there's also the other issue of PSA signing on to do this is probably really smart because it's gonna increase their business, right? Like, once people find out, like, "Wait, I can take my Magic cards, my Pokemon cards, my, I don't know, Yu-Gi-Oh! Or whatever sitting around and maybe get some quick money from GameStop, but they gotta be graded? Alright, we're gonna take a bunch of them super rares and mythics and whatever, we're gonna be shipping them off to PSA and, write them a $200 check to get some stuff graded." It's probably what's gonna end
I'm
up
just curious, like
happening.
when you had a store, what percentage of your business was great? Because that once it goes in that piece of whatever plastic or whatever, you can't ever
Yeah,
play
the
with that
the
card again.
slabs, as I like
Yeah,
to call them.
exactly. So, did you do a lot of graded card business?
No, I did almost none,
That's
honestly.
kind of what I feel. Again, if anybody that's listening is a game store owner, it has a different story. But I feel like it's such a small percentage of what
But,
just
I think it's a twofold reason I didn't, right? It's not like now where people have started popularizing grading and stuff now.
also true.
And there weren't as many cards, unless you're just looking for really old cards, there weren't as many things that were worth grading, right? Now we get every game has some type of insert that's $100 or $200 even without being graded. So then you get them graded and now they're worth 3x, 4x, sometimes 10x what they are. The weird thing is when I see people go and get like commons and uncommons graded and it's like you paid 15, $20 to get a
To
card
get
back to be worth like 12 bucks as opposed to being 50 cents or whatever. Like
yeah,
that's kind of weird. So like that's still a thing. Now, there isn't a concern I do have is if, like you pointed out, there're going to be a lot of turnover in employees. Are they going to be trained well enough to identify maybe when a slab's been broken or whatever, right? And somebody replaced something on the inside. Because otherwise there could be a market for somebody going out, getting a card graded, legitly paying the $25 or whatever, get your card graded, get it back, plop the real card out, put a counterfeit inside, and then go trade that to GameStop,
and again,
right?
it's going to depend on you probably to get that knowledge, you got to be there a minute, and I would say probably overall. I don't know the exact numbers, but just knowing the game stops that I frequented, like yeah, there's a couple of people, for example, like the manager that's been there the whole time, but there's most of the rest of the people, like it's brand, especially as the summer and the holidays are going to come up soon, a bunch of
Yeah.
brand new people, and many of them will only be there for the summer or only for the holiday season. And yeah, they probably won't be there long enough to learn that.
Yeah, I'm hoping because the concern I have is if that happens, then a person comes in to buy one of those. Usually, when you buy a graded card, it just stays in the slab. It's on display in your house, on a shelf, or in a closet. You're keeping it away in the dark or whatever. They may not even consider trying to sell or trade that thing for hell 10 years. And
Right?
then when they finally do, it's like, "Oh, you bought a counterfeit thing from GameStop forever ago." But
Yeah.
hell, that GameStop may not even be open. So
right?
what would your recourse even be at that point?
And I
Now,
would be willing to bet they probably aren't still selling cards because I just don't know that this program is gonna, again, with the kind of toe in the water approach they have. I just don't see this program working. I would love to be proven wrong because again, I want GameStop to succeed. We're all rooting for you, GameStop, because yeah, I would love it also if they had paid their employees more. Certainly, that's true for most of the companies that we deal with. But I love being able to go in there and, for example, I think when I bought my PlayStation 4, I traded in so much stuff that they owed me $5.
there
So
you go.
I
That's the way to do it.
absolutely want to be able to continue to trade in physical games. That said, most of the games I've purchased in the past 6 months are probably still digital just because of the convenience of it.
Yeah. I mean, we've said it before. We're pulling for a lot of the OGs, in the industry, but some of them just ain't gonna make it.
And we
I
talk about training of employees. I used to write a deals column for one of the mini gaming sites I wrote for, and I found out a GameStop had, I want to say it was like I think an extra 20% trade in credit on Xbox games, I believe.
oh
And the employee working the front desk had no idea that was a thing. He
yeah,
had to go
that's
look
like
up on the computer. Like, no, I promise you, I saw it on such and such, website that talks all about deals. It's really a thing. So the very next customer that comes in, hi, welcome to GameStop. Xbox games are 25% off. Bro, do I get a check? Because I
yeah,
just
no joke.
educated you on that. Like, y'all need to hire me. You didn't know that 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, I'm gonna hope for their sake that having this, we'll call it pseudo partnership with PSA to start with, also allows them to maybe put those graded cards just through a quick check of things
Yeah,
before they put them out for sale. Like there's some transition period of them coming in, they get looked at, reviewed, make sure they're legit or whatever, and then move. Because if you have untrained employees and you're not checking those, I mean, people can make fake labels. They could do, it could be a whole thing. So hopefully that's the process. But yeah, I don't know.
now,
It's
as
interesting.
how do you think? How do you feel about in terms of what's his? Again, I'm going to be shocked if this program takes off, but in the event it does, what's the impact on local game stores?
Not much. I mean, a lot of game stores wouldn't even be financed to buy a significant amount of graded cards. They're just mom and pop businesses. Not saying they're broke or anything, but like you have to be willing to sit on a lot of cash, right?
Yeah,
Because you would be a large outlay of cash to pick up even, let's say even if a $500 cap, well, 10 cards is still 5K, right? Like
right.
that you have to have a buyer for those, or at least an online site or something where
Yeah,
you're moving stuff through eBay or whatever to make it. Now, admittedly, they're not paying 5,000. Maybe they paid 3,000 for them or something or whatever, but that's still an outlay of cash that they can't use for other things. It's just sitting there, right?
yeah.
Versus going out and
Or I mean,
buying.
they have the option to do store credit too, just like GameStop does, if
Sure,
people are willing to take that.
absolutely. But I mean, you do have the issue of you can go out and buy a brand new box of the Magic's latest Magic set or Lorcana set or whatever, Star Wars at this point or whatever that's moving hot, and make some quick turnaround money. Like you make your guaranteed 20, 30, 40% quick,
Yeah.
right?
I think that absolutely is I think where I feel like local game stores are getting hit because you are in some of the same Magic and probably for other card game groups that I am, where somebody sees a low price at Walmart, they post it, and everybody goes and makes a run on that Walmart because you talk about a place where the employees have no idea of the value of the product they're selling. It's
Oh,
Walmart,
sure. Sure.
it's Target, because that is not what they are there to work on.
Also, this is a little bit not really related, but since you brought up, one of the things I want to point out is a lot of times people are trying to say like Amazon is killing local stores and whatever. Like if you look sometimes at those prices on Amazon, the Amazon price ain't even the lowest price. It's
Right?
another store that's
Yeah,
on there selling below everybody else. like like Amazon is the vehicle, but if it
yeah.
wasn't Amazon, they'd just be having it on TCG Player, they'd have it on eBay,
eBay or whatever. Yeah,
they'd have it somewhere, right? It's a lot of times other retailers undercutting retailers, driving the price down. And from what I understand, a lot of times Amazon doesn't even want to be the lowest price. They want to be like the second or third lowest, right?
yeah.
Because they still want to make some
It's
margin because they're giving
exactly
like free shipping and warehousing stuff and whatever. And
because
some of
they
their
know
stuff
they're
is
going to
also,
have a billion transactions at the end of the month, so they can afford to be the second
well,
or the third.
also some of their stuff is fulfilled by Amazon, right? So it's still stores like your local store that send stuff to Amazon. It sits in a warehouse. When stuff gets sold, they get credited and whatever. And that's a whole thing too. So it's more than just Amazon listing a product and selling a thing and trying to be the lowest price. Now, sometimes they are, but there are a lot of times I've looked stuff up and they haven't even been the lowest price. Hell, I've bought stuff through Amazon that came from another store. It didn't even come from Amazon. Now, I didn't
Me
get it
too.
next day or whatever. It took like 5 or 6 days for me to get it, but it was still the lowest price,
Right?
and it came from a store. So just something I want to toss in there. But all right, let's get to the soapbox because we have a couple of things here. And this one, I hadn't, I get my regular activity that comes through, and there'll be a knucklehead in the comments a couple times a week or whatever. But man, I got it good today. I had to delete some comments as I was going to sleep and a couple when I woke up. like,
Wow.
so really, well, report some people really that automatically deletes the comment. But to put it, okay, first off, there's a mechanic in the new set. Happens to be called Saddle. Saddle happens to be on cards called Mounts. And I'm like, you know what? I hadn't built a deck using these yet. Let me do that. I'll put it up. It'll be fun. And when I started recording, I just thought it was funny as I said it to just make a mount up reference
Right?
for like Warren G and the regulators, right? Like just if you know, you know. If you're old school,
Yep.
internet's a thing, go look it up if you don't know. And I'm just being playful things. And dude, literally, I'm talking that thing I referenced. I said that and I was like, man, I don't even know how many of y'all even know that reference. But if you do, let me
Yeah,
know in
because
the
we're not
comments.
young.
Right? Literally took maybe the first 6, 7 seconds of the video, maybe up to 10. It's very short. Most of the people had fun with it, thought about it, lots of positive comments. A man like, oh, I hadn't thought about that song in forever. Or there's people like quoting one of the lyrics or whatever. And I'm like, okay, people got it. It was fun. But man, the people who were mad, bruh, like they just like, oh, of course I come onto a Magic video and some black guy's making rap references and blah blah. Like, well, when your content's bad, of course you're gonna have to like placate people with stupid jokes and like what? Like it was a harmless reference, like for real. Like,
Yet you'll watch, somebody else make a similar video, and you'll see ACDC because in there's some card about like dirty deeds,
oh yeah, yeah.
yeah. But that reference is fine. We got no problems with that reference.
I'm just like, how are okay? First, like, let's be real. Usually those people are also not happy with themselves and they're just looking to something to be mad at, right? Because it wasn't like I made the video about that. It's not like, hell, matter of fact, I believe in the first game of that same video, I played an opponent who had a name like I think their username was Crayola. And I just made a reference like, man, that brings to mind. Like, I'm wondering if you could actually even use that name if you became a good player and had to go on like a tour or a circuit or something because Crayola might get mad. And then I
I
referenced
bet they'd sponsor you because when's the last time anybody thought
maybe,
about Crayola unless they were 10 years old?
well, like, but the thing is to tell that story, I referenced the whole thing from Green Day being green jello initially or whatever. And then they had to go through their legal thing and became like green jelly or something for a minute. And then I think they became like a whole different thing. But like, it was that whole thing that I was referencing, and nobody commented on that at all. Like, no problems with that whatsoever. But the actual reference of just saying, Warren G, regulators mount up, whatever, got their panties all in a bunch.
And as somebody mentioned, Warren G's verse actually comes from Young Guns.
Yeah,
Regulators mount up, which is the whitest movie ever.
it kind of is. like,
I said as somebody that loves those movies, but it's the whole and while we're sidetracking, so there's not, this is one of those weeks. Have you seen how many people want to claim that Billy the Kid really didn't die, kind of like the movie proposes, and that their great great grandpa, or who again, Billy the Kid was an unrepentant murderer, yet there are, I think, no less than 30 people that want to claim that their uncle or grandpa or whoever was Billy the Kid because he really didn't die when he said he died.
I mean, okay, even if he did or didn't die, like, who cares at this point?
Well, I mean, I guess if you're trying to gravy trade off of it,
I guess
you
so.
can.
People are weird, man. It's like,
Same thing as Jesse James. There's people trying to claim that Jesse James didn't die. And there's one woman who apparently has alienated half her family because they're calling her out on her BS. Like, no, none of us are descended from Jesse James.
You know what this feels like? All them people that said they were there and saw Wilt Chamberlain score 100 points, even though
Right?
it was in a little ass gym, like back in the day.
Yep.
But somehow that gym had like 100,000 people in it. You know what I mean?
Oh, by the way, NBA wasn't even popular back then.
Dude, well, because it was on like local TV and you had to look up in the newspaper. I think there was the only places any coverage existed of that
Until
game.
Magic and Bird showed up, you had to stay up till midnight because I used to watch the NBA Finals on tape delay because no one cared.
Dude, not only that, NBA
Nobody.
was only on like one night a week at a point.
Yeah,
It
because
wasn't
again,
like we got games
nobody.
3, 4 times a week or whatever, didn't have
Uh-uh.
the NBA network or whatever. Like
No, none of
that
that.
wasn't even a thing.
Basketball cards were not a thing because I'm talking about not nobody cared that basketball was happening. You could have got tickets to whatever if you had a local team in town for $5, probably.
Dude, we can
Front
go
row,
way
probably.
that's for those of y'all that don't know, that's a whole rabbit hole that literally, for as much as people talk about how great Jordan is, whatever, Magic and Bird saved the NBA.
Yeah.
Like 100%. Go look it up. There's a whole thing that they revitalized the NBA. Like they will be NBA royalty until the day they die for
Mhm.
saving the league. Like seriously. But yeah, so the thing that makes me think, and this is where I don't know, maybe sometimes I'm too empathetic or sympathetic to people, is like I really wonder what drives folks like that. Like what made you come to YouTube to watch a magic video, you click on a thumbnail that you find interesting, whatever, and then just looking for a reason to be mad when people are having a good time.
Yeah,
Right? Literally,
if you can only find joy in being an unrepentant asshole, you really got to look at your life. You just
well,
got
yeah,
to.
because I'm sitting here thinking, I didn't tell anybody to go listen to a song. I didn't reference any particular violent lyrics. I didn't like just went, if you know the song, you know the song. It was played everywhere in like 95-ish. Like everybody was playing it.
Yeah,
So
it
it's
was. You ain't talking about like Easy E. Regulate was
yeah,
on every
exactly.
local station, probably even the station that played a lot of pop music because it was just a really popular song. Everybody,
Hell.
black or
That
white, you just
that's one
was.
of the songs where people got on to Nate Dogg and were like, who's this guy? You know, like
Mhm.
so it's like, come on, man. Like, and I see that on a lot of other people's videos. Like, I don't necessarily get the reference sometimes, but I can tell they found it funny and the people in the comments related to it. So I'm like, cool. I'm not gonna just go post something negative about it. Like, it's harmless fun. Everybody's having a good time. People are weird, man. People are
It's
weird.
not, when people ask me these questions, because I had somebody many years ago when Madden put out an Eric Dickerson card, and it was one of the most broken cards ever. I think after I had about 200 yards with Dickerson at the half, my opponent, who I could tell was probably 20 or 30 years younger than me, like, who I don't even know who the F Eric Dickerson is. I got to go back and watch some tape. Like, you should.
Yep.
No lie. If you've learned one thing from this game, forget about any Madden plays you learned. Go watch tape of Eric Dickerson. I'm happy I was able to educate you today.
Yep. He was it until I found Barry Sanders, and I went,
But yeah,
never mind.
I mean, Eric was still incredible, and
Oh
just
yeah,
talking
for
about the
sure.
whole this and even off the field before the whole NIL. Eric Dickerson was NIL before they had
Yeah.
an NIL because he was able to get Texas to obviously under the table buy him a brand new Trans Am, and then he realized that's illegal. So even if I don't go to Texas, what are they going to do?
Yep. They
Who
can't
are they
say
going
nothing
to
about it.
call? Texas may be like, hey, we bought this Negro a Trans Am and he didn't go to school here.
Yep.
So he took the Trans Am and then went to SMU where he made so much more under the table money. GOAT status.
Yep. Can't say nothing about it.
I mean, they were mad, but as he figured out, there was nothing they could do because they would have had to tell on themselves.
But yeah, okay. To wrap this up though, I want to say this. Credit to my followers, to the viewers, the ones who did see some of the comments before I got to them, really did try to put some of the folks in their place. And like
That's
really it's
awesome.
like, dude, what the hell? Like, why are you mad about this? Like, what's the issue? Right. Because I don't want to come and be like, all these people are just angry. No, a lot of people were just like, dude, what the hell? Like, what is even going on here? Like, literally, for something that took up 10 seconds, you want to write a paragraph, or
Right. It took you
like
longer to write that than it did to listen to the
yeah.
joke.
And I'm like, what are you like insinuating based on just like a random comment about a popular top 10 song of the time,
Exactly.
right? Like,
You didn't do anything obscure or, like you said, anything ultra violent. That song was on every pop station because that's how popular it was.
yeah, it's just crazy. But anyway, situations dealt with, video still up, got most of the stuff cleared out. I put up a post on social, so if people want to go help me out, watch the video a little bit, upvote it, correct some of the knucklehead behavior. But yeah, I'm just gonna leave it at that and see what you got.
I don't remember who initially said it, but I know I'm in game development for years. I've seen somebody, a quote that's often shared saying, a delayed game can eventually be good, but a bad game is bad forever. Which even with modern technology is technically not true. You can look at Cyberpunk. Cyberpunk was considered to be trash on launch, but had they've saved the game, it's now considered to be one of the best RPGs you can play.
Or like No Man's Sky.
No, man,
That's
that's
one that
another
gets a
one that
lot more
launched
play lately. Or
right.
actually,
Launched
hell,
with
I just saw today people were talking about Diablo 4 because they didn't like the seasons 1, 2, and 3, but apparently season 4 is really good. So I don't know.
So yeah, but that's the quote that was thrown around for years as to why a game should be delayed or pushed back. And XDefiant has been cooking for I think at least 3 years, but actually has launched this week finally. And it's a case of they really said they took all of the because they did several beta tests. They thought, oh, it's got to be coming out soon. No, still not coming out. But one of the things they mentioned is when they even first launched, I think it was originally going to be called Tom Clancy's XDefiant, because as we know, it's been running gag. Ubisoft is kind of like the Tom Clancy company. We joke all the time about Tom Clancy's Assassin's Creed. It's got to be coming soon. But when they first launched by Mark Rubin, who you may know his name, he used to work for the competition, he used to work for Call of Duty. So they hired him to design what's kind of being, I guess, Ubisoft's answer to Call of Duty. And he mentioned that at first, what we thought we were going to be was kind of Tom Clancy, but more punk rock. And the internet will tell you what they want. And the meal like, no, God, no, don't do that. This is trash. Please change it. So they decided, wait, we have multiple franchises, many of which involve first person shooting, including the 27 Tom Clancy games they probably have. What if we made, and this is something I don't think anybody else has done, a whole shared universe amongst all our different shooters where you can play as all of the various Tom Clancy characters. You can play as characters from Far Cry. At some point, I expect to say Assassin's Creed, but you have Watch Dogs, all these various shooters that they have. And then they had an idea, like, okay, this is something good. People like the idea because everybody, that gets on here probably has a favorite Ubisoft franchise. So yeah, I'm going to play with the Watch Dogs or Tom Clancy's Phantoms or whatever. And it's launched and it's getting rave reviews. I played it for several hours. Actually, really fun. And by the way, it's free to play. So if you enjoy first person shooters at all, I would say go ahead, download it, try it, see if you like it. It does feel kind of almost like Call of Duty and Overwatch had a baby because it has, you're a first person shooter. It does have kind of special abilities. They're not as over the top as Overwatch. Nobody's going to turn into a giant robot and start raining down laser beams. For example, one of the Tom Clancy characters, I think, where they basically hit a button and they turn invisible for a few seconds because splinter cells are hard to see and all that. And then the ultimate, they're powerful, but it's stuff like, for example, you get you get the night vision goggles, you can see everybody on the map, and you get Sam Fisher's pistol and go around just one shot everybody with your stone. So much fun.
Man, you know what? Again, this is another game that comes back to what we've been talking about a lot over the last few months. Games are cross branding everything.
Yeah.
Right? And as much as there will be the purist of their favorite games that are just like, I wish it was just this. I wish it was just that. I like the feel of this. Every time we're seeing it, it seems to be popular.
Right? We
People
are
like
in the
doing it.
era of the multiverse. I'm sure at some point we'll get tired of it. But as I said, it's like people ask me all the time, "Are you tired of zombie games or vampire games?" Not if they're good. You give me a game the quality of either Left 4 Dead game, I'll play that forever. As I played the first two. Now, yeah, if it's Redfall, then yes, I'm very tired. Tired of Redfall after about 30 minutes. Yeah, I don't want any more vampire games like this. Please don't make no more of those. But if
Fair.
it if it's a good vampire game, a good zombie movie, a good sci-fi movie, they make 12 sci-fi movies probably every month. And yeah, when I'm watching a horrible one, I'm tired of them. When I see a really good one, I'm ready to see three more in the same franchise because they're good.
Yeah, I'm just thinking I don't know of a thing that I would hate to have cross branding in. If it's done well, obviously.
Yeah.
But like, if I'm watching some sci-fi thing and I don't know, Captain Picard showed up, I'd be like, "Oh, that's cool." Like the Enterprise landed on their planet or whatever. Right? Like
They do a lot more of that in comic books because it's quicker to a comic
yeah.
book can be put together way faster than a movie. So I think the Star Trek has crossed over just about everybody. Doctor Who, I want to say Transformers at some point. It feels
Yeah,
like
but
that.
I don't have a problem with any of that. I know some people hate that, but I'm like, man, there's always hell, Marvel kinda got away with this with their stuff with the what if for a long time, right?
Yeah,
Just like the idea of like, okay, if we could, what would happen, right? Or if this part of history went differently, what would happen? So, and that's kind of what I feel like whenever we're cross branding stuff. It's just like, well, how would these people interact if these two captains met each other or whatever? Like, what could they learn from one another? Would it make one universe better or worse because they had the influence from the other one? Like, maybe. Like, it's a
right.
way to kind of play around with that. So I think it's
Sci-fi is
cool.
sci-fi is really where we tell these stories. Like the classic Star Trek episode, "City on the Edge of Forever." What happens if the U.S. doesn't enter World War II, and then Kirk's girlfriend has to die because she would have prevented the U.S. from entering World War II. Now, I don't. I hope it's not a spoiler. That episode's about 60 years old now.
Yeah,
So I
exactly. I
feel
was
like
like,
no spoilers on "City on the Edge
I
of
don't think
Forever."
that needs a spoiler alert. You're well beyond the like 5 year limit. So
You would think so, but you would be amazed how many times I'll write or post something like, bruh, spoilers. It's like, it's Darth Vader. Who doesn't know now that wants to know who's about Darth Vader's
hell,
lineage?
you don't even need to watch the original three because it's been referenced in other Star Wars movies since then. So
That's what
like
I'm saying.
that don't even matter.
If you want to watch Empire Strikes Back, you've had all the time in the world.
All right, let's get into some of the fun stuff that we learned this week. I don't even know if these are fun more as they are just interesting. But yeah, yours is actually a little darker than mine.
Yeah, I'm sure y'all will remember the cargo ship that ran into a bridge in Baltimore, I believe about 6 or 7 weeks ago now. But
Wait, you
what
mean
I
that bridge that the people came out and tried to say it was a DEI problem that caused the actual bridge to
Yeah,
fall?
the
That
black
bridge.
mayor
Yeah,
who
just
wasn't on the ship.
just
It's
making
his
sure we're talking
fault.
about the same
Yeah,
bridge. But yes, continue.
but I just found out that the crew the crew that was on that ship is still on that ship and has been for 7 weeks because I think almost none of them are from the United States. So in many cases, their work visas have expired. So they won't even be allowed to set foot on U.S. soil legally until that's resolved. Also, by maritime law, apparently this ship can't go unstaffed, and obviously you may want to make sure it has staff on it right now because it just hit a bridge. So listen, they don't think most of this will be resolved until after the report, the whole finalized report on the accident is finished, and they think that could take as much as up to 2 years because we're dealing with government red tape, and as you know, government stuff goes
You
even if
know,
it's business
though,
it's super slow.
this is where I often feel that regulations or laws at pretty much every level have to have some room for like weird situations like this. Like getting
Exactly.
these people, even if it's just to like get them off the boat to go get them a good meal, let them get cleaned up some, do a nice thing, and go out and do something, and then let them go. Maybe it's a 12-hour window. They can have supervision or I don't know, like police escort, whatever the case is. Just let them get off the damn boat for a
Exactly.
couple hours and put them back on. Like that shouldn't be a thing. Like it just,
Surely you could spare some of our INS or Border Patrol folks. And spoiler alert, we're not we're not winning the immigration thing right now anyway. Maybe you can spare just a few agents,
It's just a
like you said,
weird thing.
people.
I like imagine being those people on the boat and
Right.
like I mean, obviously they can still move around, they have space or whatever, but just like you are still confined just to the boat. Like hell, that this shipment should have gone through, been done, whatever. They've been on the way home. Like,
Yeah.
and there's no telling how long they've already been working before the
Right.
incident happened.
I'm sure they got family that they would like to see. As people have mentioned, they know now that there were deaths in an accident. So you should probably be getting some therapy. You probably need to
Also
process
true.
that. And
Also
there's
true.
no way, because I bet that they haven't been able to talk to anybody, and you probably need to talk to somebody.
Yeah, that's tough, man.
In any, if let's say if that was an accident that happened at your school, for example, we send a counselor to go talk to students when there's some kind of
Dude,
accident or
you
incident at schools.
okay, you say that, but there's been a meme going around social media this week that was super relatable. And people said, "You want to know why Gen Xers are the way they are? Because we had a space launch promoted to us. We watched it in school. People blew up. There was no consolation, no hugs, no therapy. We just got assigned more homework and went on about our business." And
Right?
I was like, "Damn, that is so true." Because I remember being in school and we were like, "Oh, that wasn't supposed to happen." Even as like a
No,
first grader, second grader, I was like,
you're like, what? What just did it?
and then they
Just
explained that like something went wrong, it blew up, and some people died. And then we just went to school the next day, like it was all cool. Like that's just like, okay, sure. Now you talk about kids being traumatized, and they've been like, "Why'd you show that to the kids? Why was it not on tape delay or whatever?"
and
Like,
as I said, we probably should have talked about that with somebody, but it was a different time. We didn't even, especially in the South. Imagine putting your
yeah.
kid in therapy and having anybody know your kid. Oh God, no, that just wouldn't have been done. No. Mm-mm.
But yeah, one of the many examples with us apparently not dying to germs drinking out of water hoses and who knows what else. But yeah, I'm with you. I think it is kind of crazy that those people are still stuck on that boat for this long. You would think at some point, even if it's just like get them off the boat and confine them somewhere or whatever, and still
Right?
let the investigation happen or whatever. But yeah, that's kind of crazy. So we've referenced the Negro Leagues a couple of times, largely because you were playing MLB the Show and brought up a lot of the stuff with the history or whatever. Again, Black Diamond's a great podcast and
Right.
show. If you haven't listened to it, go check it out.
And I
But
and I again want to say that the Negro League storyline. This is the second year they've done one of the best story modes you will see in not just in a sports game. One of the best story modes you're going to see really in any game that you're going to play in terms of learning stuff about who really are American heroes and paved the way for baseball to be played the way it is today, even though many of them didn't get the credit they deserve.
yeah, and to give credit to MLB, they've backed all these projects. They're giving money to things. They're adding extra info to the Hall of Fame and all that. So good on them. And they took another step, which I saw made the news earlier today, was that they're well, for people who don't know, kind of a little backstory, a little bit of quick sports ball. But if you're in any of the major league sports, there's a time to where you get vested for all the benefits basically for life. So some years it's like some leagues I think it's 8 years, some it's 10 years, whatever. But if you play the requisite number of years, you get all the benefits, healthcare, whatever for life. Obviously, the Negro Leagues weren't able to access a lot of this for a lot of different reasons at the time.
Yeah.
And Major League Baseball came forward and said they're going to take care of all of the living Negro League members for the rest of their life, from the sounds like. Now, admittedly, some of them, all of them are much older now. I assume 70 might be the youngest age of any of them. Like,
I would almost had to be 80 because
maybe,
if we're
yeah.
talking pre-integration, we're talking before 1945. I want to
Yeah.
say.
So they probably are. But literally, this came out and said, yeah, we're putting together a package, going to take care of them. And that's a really cool gesture because I think at this point, everybody's kind of accepted, like, hey, you're doing stuff about the history and making sure stories are told, and that's cool. Kind of we accept it. This is what we're going to get, whatever. But And admittedly, you're talking about, I think the number I saw was they're estimating like 60 of them, of those players are going to show up to the thing they're doing, I think in a few weeks. So it's not a lot of people. And obviously they're older. So, I mean, at best, probably 15 years a person, right? On the upper end. But the fact that they're even doing it is cool because it takes care of them, probably puts their family's mind at ease. You don't have to worry about end of life stuff or whatever. So that's actually really cool. I just thought that was worth mentioning as something that people may not have heard of. That's actually really cool.
And for anybody who still wants to question this and say like, "Are you sure they're even good enough?" That debate's already. Rube Foster, Negro League player and owner, speaking of Trailblazers, he literally invented the slider and taught it to white players. The slider is still one of baseball's most important pitches today. So yes, these players absolutely. And again, that's just one story. We could go on.
Oh, there's a bunch.
We'd
I
be here
mean,
for 3-4 hours.
styles of play, like coaching strategies, like so much of that was different in that league. So it's actually pretty cool. But this brings us to a developing story we need to talk about. And I ain't gonna lie, man, this one kind of hurts a little bit because there's a Magic creator that goes by MTGRemy. And I say developing story because this stuff just kind of hit on social media about, as of this recording, about 4 hours ago. So this is still fairly new information, still a lot. So I'm gonna be very careful to not cast too many dispersions here, but there is a questionable history we need to talk about. So everything we could find. This starts with a post from somebody who found one of Remy's recent videos and was like having fun with it, shared it on social media, on Twitter specifically, and was like, hey, y'all should check this video out, whatever. Well, a couple people were like, hey, ain't this the dude that did some collaboration work with Steven Crowder? And people went, what? And for those you don't know, Steven Crowder is like the Joe Rogan of conservative stuff, I guess,
Yeah.
is the best way to describe it.
I don't know. At this point, is it Joe Rogan? The Joe
Well,
Rogan
yeah,
of
it's like I
conservative
was about to
stuff?
say,
Because
maybe he's become the thing.
he's pretty far to the right,
And this
or not
isn't
even
to
so.
be, and let me say, this isn't just about being political here, but this is a case of when we have people in the community that we're trying to uplift that are LGBT, trans background, whatever. And then we do have these high profile folks that have supported a lot of logic that goes against that. It is something we have to talk about and or question. And then
Yeah,
what
because we're
makes
always talking about, as you said, uplifting people's content, sharing people's content if you love it. And yeah, this is a situation where, as you said, somebody shared this guy's content and somebody else recognized him from apparently one of his videos. He is impersonating Colin Kaepernick, which, I mean,
not
he
not in a
didn't.
positive light.
No,
I
not
will
at
say
all.
that.
Because on Steven Crowder's podcast, if you were at all familiar, Steven Crowder does not align with Colin Kaepernick. It's not necessarily blackface, but in terms of the content, yeah, he's trying to make Colin Kaepernick sound like an idiot. So it's in no content that is in no way favorable to him
Yeah,
or the cause
largely
he's
making
for.
fun of the whole BLM thing and all that.
Yeah,
So that's where it starts. And it sucks too because Remy's funny, he's creative, musically talented. So like, man, it sucks when now I will also say this. He has some questionable stuff on YouTube as well, on his actual YouTube channel under his actual name. And a lot of that's a while ago. He has videos from literally like the beginning of YouTube, like 17 years ago or whatever. So I get it. People can change things. I have met people who grew up with some bad ideology and met people and went, bruh, I don't even know what I was thinking. Like, I'm totally sorry. Hell, I even follow some people on TikTok that are like that.
and by the
So,
way, as somebody that does stand up, I am not saying you can't make fun of Colin Kaepernick or Joe
oh,
Biden
no,
or
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. I have done Obama in a show, and it was, because it's murder mystery. We attack everybody. No, it was not in any way a favorable portrayal of Barack Obama to say we Tyler Perry it up. We beat the joke to death, and my boss will freely admit that. But but after you've made the joke as a comic, I need you to be willing to, if you thought the joke was funny at the time you wrote it, I need you to defend it when it's called into question. Or if that's not what
Yeah,
your
or at least
comedy
just say like,
is.
"Hey, it was a joke of the time, but it was in bad taste. I apologize." Like, I get it. It's nothing I would say today, because
Yeah,
hell, I was just watching Hornswoggle on. Well, for those who don't know, Hornswoggle was a little person who was a wrestler in WWE through the Attitude Era up until like 2000 or something, and he was on Chris Van Fleet, who does a bunch of great interviews. If you've not seen his stuff, but he even said like there were things they did in the Attitude Era that he was part of that there is no way you could do that today and put it on television. Whatever,
right.
you're not upset you did it. It made everybody a lot of money. It was super popular. But as he pointed out, we used to get commercials just randomly at 10 o'clock at night about Girls Gone Wild videos. Ain't no
Exactly.
way in hell you're gonna advertise those on TV today, you know?
Right. Cat Williams talked about this in that, scorched earth interview with Shannon Sharp, where he says, look, it's okay to look at comedy and say, 10 years ago, I thought that was funny, but maybe I shouldn't use that word anymore. I
Mhm.
think we should all be able to grow in that way. Now that said, you may get cast as a racist in a movie. That's going to require you to say things that you don't necessarily like. For example, Leonardo DiCaprio did not like how many times he had to say the N word, and Samuel L. Jackson had to sit him down and say, "Look, you are a slave owner." Calvin Candy, another spoiler.
Yeah.
Calvin Candy is not a good person. This man was not going to be like, excuse me, young African American, could you bring my lemonade over here? No, he was going to be dropping the N bomb every 6 seconds because that is the kind of person Calvin Candy is.
Dude,
And Leonardo DiCaprio understood it, embraced it, and to me, it's one of the best roles he's ever played.
it's funny you say that. I was watching an interview recently from Gary Owen, who effectively kind of has the black card pass at this point, right? But
Depending on who you ask, I
yeah,
guess
yeah,
you will
I'm
say
saying, but
he's
he gets
controversial.
hooked up by the black community pretty regularly. Like, he
And just divorced a black woman. So
yeah, he had a black wife, black kids, whole nine.
he's been at
But
the cookout for a minute now.
yep. But he even said he went to read for one of those roles, and he even felt like he had to apologize afterwards because it just felt so weird. He was like, "Man, so you can even be part of those things
Yeah.
and still understand and apologize and whatever." Is what I'm getting at.
That's to me just and you got to be able to explain yourself. To me, before you get on stage and do any joke, read any script. Because if I read the script and I just am not comfortable with it, I'm probably not gonna do it. And I'll tell whoever wanted me to do it why. That's the thing that as an actor, sometimes or a comedian, sometimes you have to say. Dave Chappelle talked about this when he just wasn't sure people were laughing at his show for the right reasons and walked away from millions of dollars and people thought he was insane.
Yeah.
But as we look at now, we look back at the comedy sketches that were done just 10 or 15 years ago. We're like, wow, that's not nearly a prime example. Somebody just, I forget what site I read this on, but somebody talked about, God, it's Get Him to the Greek.
Mm,
They called
yeah.
this the
Yeah.
most canceled movie ever because it stars Jonah Hill, Russell Brand, and then in kind of a glorified, bigger than a cameo, but not necessarily a starring role, Puff Daddy. And there's or P, whatever, Diddy, Sean Combs. There's a scene in which he apparently is chasing them down a hotel hallway in an angry rage, threatening to kill them. You talk about a scene that aged like milk.
What you think is you thought he was acting. He was just
Yeah, it was
reenacting.
exactly.
It's like what happened. Yeah, Diddy done did it. He's finished at this point.
Yeah. So we have to be able to go back and look like, yeah, and obviously, had they known about Diddy's history, they wouldn't have.
Oh,
They'd
sure.
have hired somebody else. They
But
wouldn't have done that scene.
but here's the thing on Remy that's tough is the most recent, what I guess we'll call questionable thing that we can find is 5 years ago. So it's not like it's that long ago, but there's also no reference to anything as far as him changing. There's no reference to, hey, this is why I did what I did, nothing like that. He just kind of during the pandemic started doing some magic content that took off and he just became a magic musical parody content creator. And I think that's the part that's a little like, okay, well, what about all this? Like, because, and if anybody questions it, when I went to his other YouTube page, in the banner, it's just Go Remy. It has like a cloud that's got a rainbow coming, like the typical rainbow cloud you
Yeah.
see, but that rainbow cloud is red and white stripes. And it goes into another cloud that's got like some blue outline stars. It's got like the Washington Monument, whatever. So it's, we can't even say his stuff wasn't making somewhat of a political statement at times because it's kind of right there at the top. You know what I mean? So it's like, that's what makes this tough, man. That's what
And
makes this tough.
again, if those are your politics, okay, when asked, I mean, if you were bold enough to, as you said, make that the symbol for your YouTube channel, if you're that into it, be at least be willing to defend your point. You know,
Yeah, and that's my thing.
if you
Like,
voted for Trump, okay, acknowledge that.
oh no, that's fine. But it's like I said, like it's only been a few hours. I'm at least gonna hold tight, and we will probably come back to this story. But he hasn't weighed in on the couple of threads I've seen yet.
And I feel like at some point he's gonna have to,
Yeah, or it's somebody's gonna like somebody on his
or
behalf,
just,
his
or
agency,
maybe,
whatever. Somebody's got
yeah.
to say something. So we'll
Oh, his
see.
agency ain't gonna. That's not your agency may write the statement
Oh,
for
sure, sure, sure.
you,
That's what I'm saying. But
or
somebody's
how,
got to say something.
but you got to be the one to read it because the agency ain't the one being accused of stuff.
I'm just saying, somebody's got to say something because
And as we're saying, like we don't just because you are conservative that we don't think you need to vanish. What we want to have is we
no,
want to
no.
have actual, even on this show, because Daquan and I don't agree on everything all the time. But
Hell, I
again,
had a
once
dude mad last week that we didn't agree. Like for real, dude was mad that we argued about something, and I'm like, but like, why wouldn't we though if we don't
it'd be a
agree?
pretty boring show if both of us
Yeah.
were in lockstep on everything.
So
Who
I'm
would
like,
watch that show?
yeah, that was my logic. I'm like, it's, but whatever. But anyway, I'm just putting that here because it was questionable. It felt like it was at least worth bringing up because he probably does have listeners or followers that don't necessarily follow that ideology, and they should at least be aware that when this starts going down, you'll know where it came from. If it becomes, for all I know, he might literally just say like, "Man, I was just trying to forward myself as a comedian. I made some bad decisions. Like, I'm obviously not
I
making
won't
content
even.
like that no more. Whatever,
I'm
cool.
not even necessarily saying it's bad, but like if you thought those jokes were funny, please stand up and explain. If you want to tell me, hey, I'm doing a
Oh, sure,
satire,
sure.
I think the Colin Kaepernick thing was hilarious. You just be willing to defend because you've done the stuff now. You
Oh,
can't
yeah,
delete
yeah,
the
yeah.
internet, you know.
But and like I said, I am okay with a redemption story. I'm cool with people learning from things in the past. Like, that's fine. We all are gonna have things we've said or done or made mistakes or whatever. Cool. But we need to have more context. So this is more somewhat of, hey, just be aware,
Yeah.
but also let's hold tight and see what the defense says. You know what I mean? Like, let's see what's going on. On a different note, I did get a random email that was saying that there's going to be a Modern Horizons 3 streamer event, which,
So it sounds like we're back to doing, early access streamer events.
yeah, it kind of came out of nowhere. I guess I'm with you that this maybe sounds like they thought the last one went well enough that they're ready to do another one immediately. Well,
Because I mean these emails usually always came out of nowhere, so we appear to be back on schedule.
yeah, I also, though, I wasn't sure that this product itself would be a thing that really gets an early access streamer type thing.
I mean, I hear it's
But
possibly going to burn Magic to the ground, so I guess we need to see it.
well, we'll see. I have a whole different topic about that. That might be another video, maybe next week. But anyway, just put that on people's radar. I believe it's going to be the first week or second week of June, something like that. But it's coming up, just a few weeks, so keep your eye out for that. But we do have a dinner table topic this week. And this one's kind of interesting because I don't know if I have a particular moment for this, but the question being, was there a point where you realized that in your hobbies or gaming or whatever, that what you were doing really wasn't a black thing? And like, I don't know if I had that immediate thought. Like, I knew I was the only one in my family doing the thing, right? That much I knew early on. That like most of my family didn't understand comic books, they didn't understand collectible cards, for sure didn't understand like D&D. They kind of at least knew comic books and sport cards were a thing, but all the other gaming stuff where they didn't really understand at all. So I knew that much. But there were times, I would go to the local comic book store or even in like high school or junior high, I'd be playing stuff and I'm for real the black dude playing it. Like now admittedly, I went to school where there was probably like 6 black dudes in my graduating class. Like maybe. Wasn't a lot. It was like 6 or 8. It was under 10. It wasn't a lot. So, I represented more than 10% of the black people in my graduating class at the time playing these games. You know. So that's a thing. But yeah, it's tough. It's tough. I don't know if there was like a moment though where I went, "Oh, yeah, obviously this isn't a thing other black people do." I think it just kind of set in over time of just like this this group lacks melanin. Right? Like or you'd make a joke or a reference and you're like, yeah, some of y'all probably
Regulate.
yeah,
You make a
exactly.
regulate joke.
Exactly. And the weird thing was I don't think there was a point where like somebody did a thing and made me feel isolated. Most of the people I was around were pretty chill, pretty cool at that point in the nerd cultures I was in. But there were still times that like you knew, especially when somebody outside of the group, or we would go to like a city over or whatever and participate in a tournament or an event or something, and you'd have somebody make a snide comment, and you're just like, there it is. You know what I mean? Like you got to get a little quick reminder, of just like, yeah, 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 I got it. But yeah, I don't know, dude. Did you ever have this like that? I don't know if I want to call it like a moment of clarity, but like a situation that happened that kind of made it obvious.
It isn't even the moment. It is the literal story of my life. I remember when I starting, I want to say in like kindergarten or first grade, they put me in gifted and talented, and I was the only black kid in
Mm,
the gifted and talented class.
same.
So, yeah. So just from then on, I would go. So we just got used to going places. And they would take for example. One year I did a report on Thomas Edison, and they thought it was really good, and they picked 3 or 4 kids to go give their report in front of some college professors. It's the only black kid there. And it just
Mm,
kept on going until I moved from my tiny town of Minden, Louisiana to Shreveport, and I started going to a magnet school where I was around all the other gifted and talented. Essentially, the whole school is gifted and talented. And that's when I started finding, other black nerds, other people we were talking about Star Trek, Magic.
yeah.
Well, Magic wasn't even a thing yet because we're talking about 1992. When was it?
Nine,
It
90,
wasn't.
93, 94 for Magic.
So yeah, for us, it wasn't even a thing yet at my school, or at least I wasn't aware of it. It wasn't until college that I became aware. But yeah, and that's when it just. And I mean, I started doing stand up, and in some cases writing. Well, I was writing all my own jokes, and then started doing plays and things. Again, starting at 10 or 12 years old, it would often be kind of the only, especially doing stand up. Here you at 9 or 10, yeah, you're pretty much going to be not just the only black person sometimes, but the only kid in the show doing the thing.
Yeah, now that you mention it, it probably was college when I moved out on my own, meeting a bunch of people where I started encountering a bunch of other blurs, as they
Yeah,
say, all the black nerds that was like, oh, this person's into the sci-fi thing. That's cool. Or like, oh, found another black person who plays Magic. That's cool. Or a D&D group on campus. There's like, oh, there's at least one other black person. Like, and they were the only one till I showed up. You know what I mean? Like, so now
right.
there's two of us, right? So yeah, there was just some now much more common now.
Exactly.
25, 30 years pass. So it's not as odd, and it's definitely permeated into the black communities more. I think some of that also comes from certain products, also, certain video games, stuff
Yeah,
like Yu-Gi-Oh and Dragon Ball Z or whatever, like
definitely.
penetrating those cultures a little bit more. Fighting games did a lot of that, get a lot of
Yeah,
crossover. And so I think it's just more common now. But yeah, there definitely was a point early on to think about, like, man, you would go into a place and you wouldn't even think about it because you just got used to being the only one. So it wasn't even like a cognizant thought. You just went, all right, cool. I'm just here to do whatever I'm here to do until somebody else pointed it out. Now you kind of look around and go like, oh, there's like five of us. Cool.
right.
Like, and that stands out more than when you were
We
the
got the
only one.
cookout now. There are whole groups, and thank God for social media, so
Yeah.
we can all find each other, talk to each other, play games, and just all the things. Of course, now I have a whole house full of black nerds because
Yeah, exactly. Well, if you
we're
can't find them,
reproducing.
you,
That's
you gotta
right.
you gotta make your own.
There you go.
the,
Always
the,
got my gaming table.
exactly. The gaming table, black gamer table starter kit, right?
Mhm.
All right. On that note, why don't you tell people where they can find you online, dude?
Oh, I do want to do one
Oh, sure,
correction. I'm
sure. What
sure
you got?
somebody will point this out. Rube Foster invented the screwball. I knew it was an off-speed pitch. It's a screwball, not the slider.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Still,
Might as well get
still
that correction in
incredible.
there.
Yeah, because some people are like, hey, you don't even know what you're talking about, a black baseball person.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Also, let me to add to that. Like when y'all see that on socials, when it's a minor thing like that, the point's still the same. You know
yeah,
what I
he's
mean?
still a
Like
legend. He's
if
still
you'd have said fastball versus whatever or split finger, same thing. Like it was a pitch that some dude created that everybody else adopted. Like same
right.
thing. Like if the narrative stays the same, cool. Somebody misspoke or has like one thing wrong, it's not worth making a deal out of. It's really not. But all right,
But
dude,
yeah,
where can
I
they get a
am
hold of you?
I am Brian Sonic on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. I'm dropping a whole bunch of WWE 2K content over on YouTube, doing all the things. Definitely check out my. If you watch only one of my WWE videos this year, please watch this last one, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat going against Muhammad Ali. I'm Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. Speaking of legends, on both cases, I still have no idea how I won that match. I took what the thing in the game called a super finisher, which is supposed to be it. That's like when Cody Rhodes does three crossroads instead of one, or in the case of Muhammad Ali, it's basically a Shoryuken. It's like a giant uppercut that just sits, and somehow so yeah, definitely check that out. I'm still not sure how I won that one, but I won that one. That was lots of fun.
Well, you can find me at Power Dragon, POWRDRAGN on most social platforms. But particularly, come hit your boy up over on the YouTube and help out and, negate some of the racist activity. That'd be nice. But as always, wherever you are watching or listening, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Please remember to take care of yourselves and your family. Remember to be awesome. And most importantly, be awesome to each other.